And we are live. Welcome to episode 98 of the Redman Group. I am Anthony Dream Johnson, CEO and co-founder of the Redman Group, CEO of 21 Studios, 21 Convention, 22 Convention, and several other interesting online brands. Before we begin today's episode, it is brought to you by, of course, the 21 Convention. We have the second Patriarch edition coming up very soon in about 2 months in Orlando, Florida. It's our second one ever. It'll be featuring dozens of speakers, all of which are fathers, 100% fathers. And it's a special edition of 21Con, the ultimate manosphere event in the world that's focused on fathers and fatherhood. You do not have to be a father to attend, but most guys are, and then young men who want to become fathers someday. It's an amazing event with a much stronger focus on family and fatherhood at the event, and obviously patriarchy. We're building a new one because the feminists smashed the old one, obviously. Tickets increase in price in about a day and a half, tomorrow night, Sunday night. You can bring a friend free, have an amazing time, and you will meet incredible speakers like Tanner Guzzi, Hunter Drew, Elliot Hulse, Stefan Molyneux, Mike Cernovich, Ryan Mitchler, George Bruno, Socrates, Ken Curry, Texas Dom, Steve Williams, Noah Ravoy, Phil Foster, Jack Murphy, who we'll see in just a second, and more as we keep adding to the event, including Coach Greg Adams we're about to add to the event on the page here. As for today's episode, enough with the tickets here. We'll be focusing on politics, something we talk about on the show from time to time, maybe once, twice a year, something like that. And our special guest today will be the one and only Jack Murphy.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, man. My pleasure.
So Jack is an alumni speaker twice over the 21 Convention. He first spoke in 2018, and then again at the 2019 first ever Patriarch Edition. Like I said, we have the second one coming up soon. He is the pretty infamous author of Democrat to Deplorable, Why 9 million Obama voters ditched the Democrats and embraced Donald Trump in 2016. He was recently on Tim Pool, for example. That was a huge deal. Tim Pool, I'm a big fan. An upcoming, political commentator and reporter, independent journalist on YouTube. So you can't even see it. Sorry, guys. There's the book. You should buy it on Amazon. Dope ass book. And Jack's been through a lot too. Before we even get into today's content, he's one of the guys in the manosphere that went through a lot in terms of getting doxxed and swatted, like literally cops showing up at his house for bullshit a couple years ago. There's some angry feminists and SJWs and all kinds of shit. And he was even on like the school district board up in DC, Washington, DC in America. And he actually got fired from that, all kinds of stupid nonsense. So a lot of guys talk about censorship and doxing and all this stuff, but it rarely at this level comes to fruition. But for Jack, it did. And he made a comeback from that. In his 2018 speech at the convention, you'll see soon on YouTube, and 21 University talks about that. I believe the title is actually Art of the Comeback, right?
That's right, man.
Yeah. I actually just got that book from Donald Trump as well. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it, and look forward to meeting you again soon.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I appreciate you having me on. It's been a wild ride. These last few years have been crazy. You talk about how the censorship stuff and the doxing, it sounds sort of like a myth. It sounds sort of like a nightmare that people make up, that it doesn't really happen. But it happened, and it happened to me. And we can get into all the details later on that if you want. But I wasn't gonna let that stop me. And I just kind of jujitsu'd all that negative energy and turned it into something positive. And so I'm just pouring it, going as hard as I can, just full steam right now, and just grinding. And lots of the good things are happening.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, you're about to launch another round of Liminal Order, right? Your online group for men.
Yeah, we have an online group. Well, it's not just online. It's a national men's fraternity, basically. And we have chapters in New York and DC, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Nashville, Las Vegas, Denver. And we really emphasize getting together in person and having in-person meetups and really building the brotherhood. And we usually keep the membership closed. That's Liminal Order, liminal-order.com. We usually keep the membership closed because it's a really customized, like, personal experience. And so we can't just like have people coming in and out all the time. Yeah. So we do have the doors open March 1st and 2nd. And there's like 1,500 people on the waiting list right now. So I'm expecting, I'm expecting a lot of people joining up in the next couple of days. It's gonna be great.
Nice. I'm excited for you, man. Happy to promote it too, when and where we can. And also, guys, for those of you watching, you can follow Jack on Twitter with the link in the video description. I'll put his website and stuff later in there too, Liminal Order and all that.
Great. Thanks.
Yep. As for today's topic, man, I wanted to basically talk about politics as it relates to men and fathers, and basically even boys to a degree, and to the manosphere. When I grew up, I found the manosphere in 2005 through the pickup artist community. We've talked about that a little bit, I think, personally at the conventions. And back in the day, in the mid 2000s, as far as the manosphere went, the pickup artist community, the seduction community, politics was like a very minor issue. Rarely did it come up at all, even during a presidential election, like in 2008. It just wasn't a thing. There wasn't, men in France and Britain there weren't laws being made to criminalize picking up women on the street, catcalling or whatever. None of that kind of nonsense. They weren't criminalizing day game, which you see now. There's actually, news articles about this and things being done, unfortunately, against it. Never mind the Me Too crap that we've seen rise up in recent years and all that. So it's just amazing, just as like the manosphere community has continued to evolve and grow and branch out. Politics, I think, has necessarily become a bigger part of it, even if at the beginning in the 90s and 2000s, it was like a non-issue. Like no one cared. Like I remember almost zero threads on all these discussion forums back in the day that had anything to do with politics, even at the most pinnacle time.
Yeah, there was nothing about that, and it really started picking up, I think, from what I saw somewhere around the conversation of politics coming into the manosphere and forums and chats and posts and stuff is, so I think really started like around 2007 or 8, which is really when, the feminist issues, the radical feminist issues really started to become clear to people, and the negative effects started to become clear. And the feminist stuff also sort of translated into the racial stuff and identity politics too. And so once that started happening, once they made straight white guys the enemy, and whether it was, overt and explicit back then, or not, they began to set their sights on us. And so, of course people started to react, and then that all took over all of politics. I mean, I don't think before 2010 or 11 was intersectionality, racial identity politics, stuff like that, was it like just commonly in the discourse and commonly being spoken about by politicians.
Yeah.
And so now it is. And so like they put the target on us, and it's no wonder that we've been, more interested in politics since then. And the truth is the same things which disrupt our dating and mating markets, which is what I started writing and learning about, also disrupt our national politics and go all the way up to the Supreme Court. So it's, there's no escaping the two. They're inextricably linked. They come from the same source, and the issues that they raise and the attack vectors that they take are exactly the same for politics and for the manosphere, which is why I think that there's so much more attention in this space now than there ever has been. And people are interested in learning about how to deal with all these attacks that are coming from them, whether it's in schools, at the universities, with laws and regulations, censorship, or all the way up to the Supreme Court with the Kavanaugh hearings, and listening to the senators say you have to believe all women, and that every sexual harassment or sexual abuse victim should be believed.
Like I heard you on Tim Pool talking about this, that you're older than me, you're Gen X. I'm a millennial at 31. But I heard you say something to him, and it was, to paraphrase you, I think, it was about how when you grew up in America, and you're older than me, but different time period, that America culturally isn't around anymore. And I feel the same way at 31, growing up in the 90s. I was born in 88, and I grew up basically throughout the 90s as a child. And the 90s America, I mean, obviously we don't have intersectionality, but even something as simple as hating someone based on their sex was, I think, at an all-time low. Like it was very not cool to hate men or women based on the way they're born. This is like fucking stupid. Right. That's gone out the window. I think feminism, in my view, has really ramped up the man-hating bigotry, and they've normalized it in TV, to media, to politics, like you're talking about with Kavanaugh. And that's not the America that I mean, it's so recent, but I grew up in as a kid. It's like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah. So when I was growing up, they just preached to us all the time: be colorblind. Don't worry about people's race. Don't worry about people's gender. Everybody can be successful. You just give everybody a chance to prove who they are. And then you judge people on the merits of their behavior. And that's the way I was raised, and that's the way I went into the workplace. That's the way I engaged socially, civically, whether it's volunteering or doing work for nonprofits or helping kids get a better education. And then all of a sudden, again, it's like 2008, 9, 10, around there. All of a sudden, everybody started talking about race again, and the people who were talking about race are the ones who are the ones. They're like pointing the finger and they're saying, "Don't be a racist," but then they're like, "And then all you white guys are bad." So it's like this culture war sort of conscripted us. They came for us. They attacked us. They're attacking us constantly. And it's not, I mean, I didn't grow up wanting to be to be involved in this industry or in this field or in this academic area. But you know, they brought the battle to me, both on a theoretical level and then on a real tactical level, you know, by getting me doxxed and getting me fired and
Yeah,
sending the cops to my house, all over the same issues and the same bullshit. So now there's a war. They started it, we're in it, and it's like you can't stop because they're not gonna. So there's
that's
really
right.
there's no choice left. There has to be a reaction and a pushback,
Yep.
which is, I know exactly, was, you know, one of your goals. That's definitely
Yeah.
one of my goals too. Is
Well, I'm
there
an
has to be a
abolitionist.
space.
I'm an
Yeah,
abolitionist.
abolishing what?
Feminism.
Oh yeah, well it has to, and you know what's interesting is I think that it has sort of like a built-in self-destruct mechanism.
Yeah.
It just needs, it needs more more sunlight, more sunshine. It needs to be disinfected with attention, right?
Well,
Like
that would that be similar to tyranny sows the seeds of its own destruction? Is that
it's possible. I just, you know, I'm not sure what the exact context was for that, but in this case, you know, the theories, especially intersectionality, which identifies people's, you know, a matrix of their oppression, you know, so you're not
yeah?
just a woman, you're a black woman who's bisexual, who, you know, is handicapped.
Trans, non-cis, or whatever the fuck.
Right. So
Yeah.
you can slice it and dice it up a million different ways. And you've already started to see this. I mean, intersectionality was born actually out of, Kimberly Crenshaw wrote about this in the 80s. It was born out of black women being mad at white women and saying, hey, white women, you don't understand what it's like to be a black woman, so you can't talk for us. And that
Wow.
theory has now been expanded into, you know, everything. And the only people that can't talk about anything at all are the cis straight, I use cis ironically there,
Yeah.
straight white guys. And so intersectionality and this feminism stuff, it's like the longer it goes on, the more people are beginning to see how negative and pernicious it really is.
Yeah.
And the issue though is that, like, uh, me personally, I'm I believe that women should have full rights, right? Like, I don't
Sure.
believe that we need to go back in time. I'm not talking about repealing the right to vote or whatever. Like the
So
early
you're in
state,
favor of equality before the law.
equality before the law, exactly
Yeah.
right. And so, but that's done, right? Like that
Yep.
army, they built an army to achieve that goal. And then once that goal was complete, they were like, they had this army with all their guns and they were hungry and they had to feed it. And so they just kept looking for new terrain to conquer and new places to go.
It's like a
And
self-feeding bureaucracy almost, as I view it.
well, yeah, that's exactly right. That's a great comparison because you know, with bureaucracies, they're more concerned about maintaining their budgets and maintaining the money that they have in their pockets to squander usually, and so that they're not focused on whatever their original goal was, which is exactly the same thing here with feminism now. Even though that they think they are right, like they're
Yeah.
convinced that they're fighting a righteous cause and we're terrible people that need to be destroyed and masculinity needs to be destroyed.
Yep.
And I think that's something that's really important for people to understand is that the reason why masculinity is under attack is because masculinity is the source of male power. Male power is the source of the patriarchy, and the patriarchy is the source of oppression. So in order to end oppression, they have to destroy the
Well, let
source
me
of male
ask you.
power.
I agree with you 100%. Let me ask you a pretty basic question. Do you think America has any level of functioning patriarchy right now?
Hmm. You know, that's interesting. And this is a concept that I've often grappled with in the context of the manosphere and some of its more prominent voices who have, you know, said that we really live in a gynocentric, like a woman-focused society.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I mean, I think that there is a patriarchy in the sense that in many parts of America and in a lot of homes and bedrooms, the man still is sort of the leader, right? And so
Mhm.
that is what I would consider to be sort of patriarchy. But
Yeah.
there's also there's a phrase, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world, right?
Yep.
And so what that
Yep.
means is that the mom who rocks the baby cradle and whispers in the baby's ears actually has more power over what society is going to be. And the more that we realize too and begin to, you know, we know this, but the outsiders, that the more we understand that women are sort of the gatekeepers in terms of mating, right? That is an inherent power that they have that does sort of control the rest of our relationships, right? Like women get to choose who they mate with, men compete with each other in order to get the mate that they want. And so that dynamic is everywhere at all times. So with that in place, I don't know how we could have like an exclusive patriarchy unless we were like, had the women chained up and well, I'm not going to say that because it'll get cut. It'll be cut out of context.
Mad Max shit.
Yeah, exactly.
They're getting milked or something in the desert.
Right. Well, South Park has was it South Park? It might have been where the end result of feminism is that dudes are going to be chained up and they're only going to be doing two things. One, they're going to be writing jokes because women aren't funny.
I've seen this.
And two, they're going to be chained up and milked for semen. So, I mean, that is the end result of feminism, I think. But hopefully we'll stop it before we get to that.
Well, I've seen that episode of South Park, but on a more serious note, the founder of gender studies, women's studies back in the 70s, I think, she actually advocated, maybe that men should be reduced to about 10-13% of the population. Oh. She said this in a speech. And really? She's actually the founder of, I forget her name. You can look it up. But just type the founder of gender studies and then, 10% male population. You'll see this. Wow. She was recorded on a speech saying this.
Well, and
that's basically like genocide in slow motion.
Yeah, it really is. But what's interesting about that is actually, if you think about it, most men, is it most? I don't know what the exact number, but like not every guy reproduces, right? Not every guy has kids.
Yeah, there's been a lot of studies on that coming out lately. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at it from that perspective, then I can see why she might think that there's quote some surplus males out there. But if she wants to get anything moved, built, dug, or destroyed, she's going to need men to do it. So
yep. Yeah, it's funny because the number is so specific. It reminded me. It's almost like they just want to. If you agree with the alpha beta thing, it's almost like they just want to, like an 80-20 kind of rule,
right?
Pareto principle.
Yeah,
it's almost like these hyper radical feminists just want to cull the beta males literally.
Yeah,
in a form of gendercide.
Yeah, women have a visceral disgust to beta males. I mean, you can see the way they react to really thirsty dudes, and guys who haven't gotten their game together or their physical self together or whatever. They can remember the old days when the reactions that they would get from women weren't what they wanted them to be, and then women's reactions to men of status are just undeniable. You can, as Trump said, they want you to grab them in the pussy. They want you to. They're like literally standing there waiting for you to do that, hoping at that time that they'll pick me.
I was doing an interview the other day actually with Coach Corey Wayne, a big YouTuber, at his apartment in Orlando, and I was showing him some of my text messaging on Tinder and stuff like that. And I mean, he's pretty good as a coach, but he was just like kind of surprised even to see what I get away with.
Yeah,
and it's very much just alpha beta stuff, and that's in SMV as well. If I'm hotter than this girl and she knows that, and she also views me as this kind of alpha persona, even though she hasn't met me, I can get away with murder. Yeah. I could say literally anything I can think of, like the most provocative shit imaginable.
Right.
And it's the next 9 guys that do that, she'll just delete them immediately or report them.
Well, I think how that appeals to women because it's a signal that you're not bound by the normal constraints that beta guys or low status guys are bound by, right? There's expectations that a guy just like a fat loser guy is not gonna be empowered to speak to an attractive woman that way. And so when you just walk in the door and you just go guns blazing, you don't give a fuck, they're like, oh, I like that, that's interesting. And then also you got to imagine, dude, like I've looked through girls' Tinders and their text messages, dude. They just get so many inane messages, just hundreds of useless messages that if you stand out, you stand out. And that's sort of the whole definition of the status thing. It's like you stand out, and that way you get things done. Now, the problem is like the way that the society is moving right now, and the de-emphasis on culturally enforced monogamy, the de-emphasis on culturally enforced marriages and that kind of tradition. What we're seeing is just sort of like a wild west of sexual relationships and such. And so the winners are winning more, the losers are losing more, and the polarization that we're seeing in both our political universe is being mirrored in the sexual dating and mating markets as well.
Would you say that the political tensions we see today mirror the gender relations we see that are, in my opinion, kind of collapsing?
Yeah, well, I think that they're all related, right? So like I get so fucking sick and talk about feminism, to be honest, because it's like it's so stupid, but like we have to talk about it all the time, right?
Yeah.
But it's everywhere. It has infected all of our relationships, whether they're economic relationships. It's affected the way that we conduct business. It's affected the way that science gets done.
Yep.
It's limiting risk taking. It's limiting scientific evolution and discovery. And I'm not just some random guy, saying something as radical as that. I was listening to Eric Weinstein and Tyler Cowen do a podcast, and they both said this they danced around the notion. They called it the femininization of the economy, but they didn't really they're like, oh, but it's a net good. But they didn't even take a second to
Oh
dig
my
dig
God.
into the real negatives. And
Okay.
I've heard Peter Thiel talk about the de-risking of the economy, and
Yeah, me
that's
too. I
that's
like him a
this.
lot. He's a great
Yeah.
guy.
Oh, he's totally red pilled, dude.
Yeah.
And the de-risking of the economy means that people are taking less chances, less risk. They're not not as focused on the competition and evolving ideas and products and science and stuff. So if to say that the dating markets and politics and they're all related because they're all being affected by these notions that have come out of the feminist family of academic academic thought, and now serious activism too. So yeah, they're related, and it's pervasive. It's everywhere, which is why there has
Yeah.
to be, and there is, a reaction, and a formal. There needs to be like a formal literature of all, and it's evolving now too, to respond to this and to be a legitimate academic area of work, so that quote normal people can be convinced, through
Yeah.
science and through data, that we're on a bad path. And so in the meantime, what guys like you and me are doing, we're trying to change the narratives, but we're also just trying to help guys learn how to not only endure what's happening, but to
Yeah.
thrive in this environment.
Yes, that's right. And also, I want to make women great again too. And I see that as a precursor to the academic push you're talking about. That does need to happen. Totally. It hasn't happened yet. You see a little bit of it. You see guys, psychologists like Sean Smith speaking out. You see professors like Janice Fiamengo,
Hmm.
Jordan Peterson, obviously. But it's a long road ahead. Like I talk about abolishing feminism, and that's a real goal for me. But I think at minimum, it's going to take a couple decades. It'll take a generation.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because even if like feminism was like as a notion became unpopular today, the problem is that the thinking is already everywhere in academia, especially,
Yes.
right? So there's people who are staffed up in academia that are going to be there for a career, that believe this stuff wholeheartedly, and like
Hmm.
if we it will take time for us to be able to push our troops basically through the ranks of society in such a way that we can really retake the institutions, because
Yeah.
it's the institutional takeover that's the biggest problem. It's as Nassim Taleb writes about, it's the tyranny of the minority, a very vocal minority.
That's right.
And so they get into these high leverage positions of power where they can affect policy, and then that policy in turn affects everybody. So it doesn't take a national effort
Yeah.
to say like create this concept of rape culture, right? So there's like this lie about rape culture that
Yeah.
a quarter of every girl on campus gets raped.
Yeah,
That's
and
it's
young men at colleges need to be told not to rape women. Like, how fucking
right.
insulting is that?
Right,
It's
it's
stupid.
ridiculous. So
Stupid.
so the way that came about was that in 2011, these activists like concocted a study, and then they got the attention of Joe Biden and Barack Obama, and then they pushed a change through the Department of Education, and that then filtered all the way down to all the universities.
And that
And
was Title IX, it's called, or something
yeah,
like that.
it's Title IX, and this is called the Dear Colleague Letter of 2011, which
Hmm.
didn't even get reviewed. It didn't have public review. It didn't have a vote. It wasn't in front of Congress. It was just a group of activists concocted a bullshit study. And they even later addressed the people who did the study, even later were like, no, this study is not nationally representative. But they used the study anyway and convinced Joe Biden, that sucker. They convinced Joe Biden to do this through the Department of Education, and it changed the whole fucking country. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's such a small, high leverage thing. And now it's been 10 years later. I can't believe it's been 10 years. And now the institutions and the corporations are just staffed up, completely filled with people that have drinking this Kool-Aid. And it's going to take forever. It's going to take a fucking long time, man, to get rid of those people. There's no convincing them, right? So they have to be pushed out. They have to age out.
Reason only works on the reasonable, and people who are interested in actually debating like that.
Yeah, right. There's no reason, because it's a religion now. So one of the things that I like to talk about is this implicit association test. It's intended, or it said it was intended to be able to like discover your hidden racism, right? And so it's a test where you like look at pictures of different people and positive or negative words, and at times like how quickly you can associate a positive word with an African American or a negative word with a white guy. And then from there, they think that they've discovered that everybody has built-in racism. And so that study then goes to the HR departments across across the whole country.
Oh, they call it unconscious racism or some shit, right?
Yeah, unconscious and implicit racism, implicit bias. And so then that goes into every corporation, and now every corporation, basically brainwashes their people with this stuff now. And again, that study, even the fucking guy who did the study says it's flawed, okay? But yet that study still lives on. And every corporation in America still believes it's true, and they still train their staff up on it. And they're still trying to rewire your brain, all because of some stupid study that the guy who said it says is bullshit anyway. So it's stuff like that that's very difficult to combat. And if anybody's got any ideas of how we could come up with a high leverage bomb like that, that would be amazing. I mean, that's what it will take.
Yeah. I'm doing my best here with Make Women Great Again, man. Let's actually talk about that for a second. I want to get into your book after that, but Make Women Great Again, you saw it take off recently in January and stuff like that. We reached well over 80 million people with it in terms of broadcast reach.
Nice.
It was fucking wild, and I really did not know it would do that. I hoped it would do that, putting it out, and I figured it would get a little bit of attention, but it just kept escalating exponentially.
Yeah. Well, you triggered the rage, man, and it's the number one method of transmission of any idea is rage. So you have to trigger people in order to get them to share your message. And the haters spread your name farther and wider than your biggest supporter, which is the weirdest thing. But humans,
the intensity is there. It's so negative with them too.
Yeah. Well, they feel like they have to, that they're in a war, and you're somebody who's like trying to kill them. Your mere existence, my friend, is violence. Yeah. Just wearing that hat is a violent act on your part. And they can't stand it. Now they're taught this, right? These people that react like this, they're taught through this thing called critical theory, right? That they're taught that it's not enough to just philosophize anymore. It's not enough to just theorize or write, that you have to take action. Right. So you have to take action to make change. And that's what we're seeing. This is where the social justice warriors come from. You mix the critical theory up with the intersectionality and the feminism and Marxism, you mix it all up, and you've got like a supercharged, rage machine. And who think they're perfect, right? Who think their shit don't stink. So if they get a guy like you, Mr. Triggerman USA, if they get a guy like you, and they see you and your arrogance that you can actually help a woman, your assumption that a woman needs to be helped in any way whatsoever, and then the fact that they have to destroy you because that's how they're trained, then of course, dude, they're going to see this and they just spread this shit.
It was really fun putting the page together, man. Like I enjoy doing the pages anyway. I usually pick one of my teammates or my guys working with me to do it. And it was just so much fun. But we were just grinning, like drinking, having drinks, like doing this shit remotely over Skype and stuff. And it was a lot of fun putting it together. Because I enjoy, because it really, the way I did it is I just thought about all the things that feminists value. And I think they have a very shitty, toxic, negative philosophy. So everything that they hate, generally speaking, is good. They hate patriarchy. I mean, and that's just code for hating, I think, fatherhood and family. They hate mansplaining. That's code for hating anything men have to say in public, especially, cisgendered white men, but really any man, especially a father. I think fathers, are an underappreciated demographic in the manosphere and the wider culture. And, that's our putting together the patriarch edition for men and stuff and fathers.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was just thinking about this morning. My Twitter follower count's up to like 32,000 and some right now. And every time I get the biggest bumps I get are my threads on fatherhood. And those get spread the farthest. You know, I've written an amazing book. It's got almost all 5 stars. People who read it, they love it. It just sold a crap ton this month. I was like number 6 in anthropology, like total for Amazon, right?
Nice.
And you know, up there with some really, really big famous people. But you know, people are more likely to spread the fatherhood stuff. It resonates with everyone who, because everyone had a dad or didn't have a dad, right?
Yeah.
So either way, you know, there's some either feeling of they can relate, or there's a feeling of like, oh, they wish they had it. But either way, that really not triggers, but like elicits. There we go. Elicits a reaction and response from people, and I think people are really interested in it. And dude, I get so many messages from women. You know, A, I wish my dad was more like that, or B, I wish my husband was more like that, or you know, my husband is like that, and it's so great for my kids. I mean, just so much feedback. I think that fatherhood is definitely undervalued right now. And people feel it, and people are looking for guidance, and they're looking for information, and they're looking for role models, right?
Yeah.
And whenever they come across,
that's a major function of fatherhood in itself, is being a role model and being a backbone.
Yeah, right, exactly.
In a different way than a mother is. I think it's very specific to being a man.
Yeah, they're very different, and it's one of the worst parts about divorce is that ordinarily, right, a mother and a father living in the same house. You know, let's say the kid does something and the mom reacts one way and the dad reacts the other way. The kid gets both of the reactions. The mom and the dad negotiate an outcome, right? Or like a punishment or a response, or how to handle a certain situation. And then the kid gets this negotiated mix of ideas that are probably both have, or not probably, but usually both have merit. And so they get the mixture that they need. And in a divorced household, it's the opposite. So whenever they're just with their mom, all they get is this straight maternal angle with no negotiation. And I imagine, you know, in my circumstance, as a single dad, but not really single dad, because I have a long-term girlfriend who's basically stepmom, red hen. Yeah, I mean, we've been together like 6 years, so you know, she's basically stepmom to the kids. So if I didn't have her as a balance, as a maternal balance, to how I handled the children, I could see that it would probably be bad for them if they just got straight masculine energy all the time, because kids need both. We all need both. Everybody needs both. And so divorce in single parent households and non-married unions and such, I think, are leading to a polarization in just parenting styles. And so kids are just getting one heavy hyper dose of another, of one or the other, and it's usually, you know, mothers at this point, if it's going to be just one or the other. And you know, that has an impact on society over time, right? As those kids get older,
there's a whole generation of boys being raised by single mothers. Millennial single mothers in particular, I think, is where it's peaked. And those boys now are still pretty young. They're, you know, little kids, 5, 8 years old or whatever.
Yeah.
I know a lot of their mothers, but
well, you see them on the market, that's for sure. Yeah, you know, that's another reason why, you know, this struggle is going to take time, because, you know, there's just waves and waves of people crashing onto the shore, carrying the flag of whichever team they're on, and whether they know it or not, right? Like, unfortunately, these kids are being raised by single moms. They don't know now, as their children, that they're getting, you know, only one part of the story. You know, and it takes a long time for an adult to realize that, like, the foundational, you know, ideas that their parents gave them were fucked up, right? Like, that's a process that takes time, where you get out in the world and you encounter things and have experiences, and you put it through that filter that mom gave you or whoever gave you, and like, it doesn't work, and you're like, I don't know what's wrong with that. Those people must be crazy.
It took me till I was about 30 to really get some altitude and perspective on my childhood, the way I was raised, what actually happened for me and my siblings. Yeah, so it took time, and maybe other people may find it sooner or even later, but that was for me 30.
Yeah, I don't think 30 is late for that. I think that that's a reasonable time period. And dude, the thing is, some people don't ever. They don't ever
Yeah.
have a chance to pull back and take a look. I mean, dude, I have gone to therapy plenty of times, and I'm an advocate. If you can find a therapist that
Agreed.
believes in masculinity and understands what it's like to be a man and stuff, then I highly recommend it. And in doing that, like, I examined all the elements of my childhood and was able to see what the consequences of my parents' behavior was on me.
Yeah.
And that has given me like superpowers, man. So
No doubt.
this self-reflection is important, and it's going to take a long time for kids who are raised without the balance and healthy perspectives to take that time and be able to reflect and to make changes and adjustment. And so that's why we're out here, man. That's why we're out here doing this, because guys are thirsty.
Well, there was actually there was an article that came out, or not just an article. I sent it to Sean Smith, the psychologist we know, and it was something Janice Fumengo posted, and it's a study that came out, a professional study in a journal, and basically it was a study on the pickup artist community, and it just came out recently, a couple days ago.
Oh, yeah.
And it focused on their psychological well-being and mental health, and they actually talked about how a lot of what you see in the manosphere and the pickup artist community is pretty similar to CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah, man.
And they think that's why the pickup artist community has been so popular all these years, because it's helping young guys in a very informal mass kind of therapy get better with women and understand how they got fucked up by a single mother, kind of parenthood, or whatever other toxic elements of growing up they had, from Disney blue pill crap to beyond.
Yeah, that's a great point. And cognitive behavioral therapy is something that I really believe in. It's a way of identifying sort of flawed and improper thinking and behavior, and then being able to remind yourself and to change your behavior through sort of the ancient ways, right? It's like a non-drug based approach to change. And I believe in CBT. We actually, Dr. Well, I don't know if I can't say that, but we do have a doctor in the liminal order who is doing cognitive behavioral therapy workshops for our members. I mean, this is how important I believe it is. It is a way to help you manage your emotions, manage your own self-talk, manage the messages that you send yourself. And it's a way to help reshape the lens with which you perceive reality. And you're exactly right. And I really want to read that study, because what the manosphere has done over time is to teach men their flawed thinking, right? Is to help them understand where their value is, right? It is in some ways it's very maternal in this sort of like we're actually genuinely helping people out of care and concern, right?
Yeah.
And cognitive behavioral therapy is something that we all need. And in fact, in fact, one of the things that Jonathan Haidt pointed out in his book, Coddling of American Mind, is that our universities, if you take the idea of cognitive behavioral therapy and you're teaching people how to have healthy thinking, what they're doing in the universities is the exact opposite. They're teaching people to have sick thinking. They're actually teaching people to be mentally ill. And by that, I mean, they're teaching people that the emotional reaction to a listener of your comments is what matters. The truth doesn't matter. What you actually said doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the other person's reaction. So they're basically putting all of rationality aside, and they're emphasizing emotional reactions and emotional reasoning. Emotional reasoning is not a thing.
Well, they've elevated feelings over reality. That's what it sounds like.
Right, exactly right. And this is the exact opposite of the tenets of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is another reason why I think that manosphere and university life is in such conflict, is because we're really trying to teach people to handle their own shit. And it's another reason why guys like Mike Cernovich found success with the gorilla mindset, because again, it's just the same concepts of identifying flawed and damaging thinking, and then being able to make a change, and the fucked up part is that a lot of that flawed thinking was like put into the guys' heads by society, right? Like, that, women aren't really sexual beings, or, they don't want you to approach, or you have to do things a certain way. Like there's fucked up thinking that's been put into your head that needs to be deprogrammed. And so it's actually really no surprise to me at all that all these issues are coming together, that they're all finally just all hitting at the same time, and people are really starting to see how this stuff is all related. I gotta tell you,
Do you see this boiling point as a healing process? This kind of super high tension we see in politics and culture, both.
well, it's a healing process in the sense that, like, sometimes it has to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
And this is bringing the infection to the surface, and this is making people aware that there's an acute problem. So to the extent that it's going to be helpful long term, yeah, that's definitely helpful. But I don't see any healing taking place whatsoever on a national level. On an individual level, yeah, the guys that you have reached, the guys that I have reached, the guys in the liminal order, we're definitely making positive changes there.
And the Manosphere is reaching millions per year. I mean, our channel alone last year reached about 10 million.
Yeah.
If you count all the speakers together, it's probably, I don't know, 50 million or 100 million or something like that. Just in terms of view count. So it's pretty big.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's crazy. I mean, even I'm doing millions and millions and millions of impressions myself. It's nuts, actually.
Yeah.
It's nuts how we're able to reach so many people. And it hasn't happened for you, but for me, like, I've noticed that the haters have actually kind of abated for a while. I'm not getting as much hate from people, or just screeching and screaming. The message is just positive, and it's good. I mean, you and I take very different approach. Very different approaches to getting the message out, but at heart, the message is the same, which is, men and fathers, you're valuable, and you may not have been given the skills that you needed in order to be the best version of yourself that you want to be. And let's help you figure out how to do that. That's leadership, it's coaching, it's accountability, really. And again, we may take different approaches to get there, but the message is the same, which is, and the same answers are required for relationships as is required to solve academia, which is, to solve the tech problems and to solve media problems. It's all the same. We all have to begin to understand and appreciate and emphasize and promote positive images of masculinity, positive images of fatherhood, of male leadership. And we need to make it's crazy to say this, but we need to make space for male leadership, because even the male leaders that we have now, some of them are so cucked that they don't even understand that they're putting forth, hurtful messaging and taking hurtful actions that are actually running contrary to their own best interests and their own benefit, by allowing feminist theory to take over their companies, or to take over their families, or allow the fucking schools to, teach their kids. My kid came home the other day and said, "Dad, I identify as a toaster." I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, in health class today, they told us there was, a spectrum of gender identities, and there's some, ungodly number of genders that you can be." Wow. And he came home and he told me he identifies as a toaster, because he understands it's bullshit. He understands that it's nonsense, right? And so
kids are very blunt like that, even into like their early teens. They just don't tolerate the bull. They're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" I remember being that age too. It's like, if I heard something that was nonsense, even if I didn't speak up openly, in my head I'd be like, "What the fuck are they talking about? It's a bunch of bullshit."
Right. Well, this all came in a conversation too with my eldest daughter, also, who's 14, and she's telling me every week at school they have this like, it's basically like a group therapy session, and it's like not academics, and it's all the social issues, and of course, what is the theme? Fucking diversity, inclusion, and equity, which I've rearranged the letters. I've seen this done before, and the acronym is now DIE, D-I-E, diversity, inclusion, equity, D-I-E. I love it. And so they were told this week that there's this thing called the pyramid of hate. Okay, the pyramid of hate, and at the bottom is things like stereotypes, like white men can't jump, Asians are good at math, black guys are faster than white guys, whatever. Stereotypes, generalizations at the bottom, and then at the top is genocide. So what they're being taught at school.
Oh, I found it on the ADL. I'll pull this up in a second. Yeah, keep going.
They found it. They're telling kids that a coherent understanding of broad generalizations of who we are and our differences, understanding that people and groups of people are different, leads to genocide. Okay, there it is, genocide of hate, a pyramid of hate. They literally are pushing that on my kids at school.
Wow.
Yeah, and
That's fucked up, man.
it is
What is this
fucked up.
shit?
I know, and they hate it. So on TikTok,
What
there's
happened
this.
to the reading rainbow? What the fuck is this shit?
I know, right? On TikTok, there's a meme where like whatever it is, it's like rich boy check or white girl check or whatever. And so in class, they were just going genocide check. Like they are writing it off because it's stupid. They're rolling their eyes at this. No one believes that understanding the general differences between groups of people, men are taller than women, like that kind of thing is in the pyramid of hate and leads to genocide. So this all ties together with it's all this shit is everywhere all the time. It's affecting all of us and everything that we do, whether you know it or not. And it's in these high leverage positions of academics and education, especially where they're being able to recruit new members into their cult. Now, what's interesting is that kids always rebel against whatever their teachers and parents tell them.
Yep.
And they always want to come up with their new own set of values and the things that are important to them. So right now, what the kids are being taught is all this stupid shit. And it may well very be that their act of rebellion is to just throw that shit in the trash. And I hope so. So yeah. I know at least my kids are pretty based. Like, if your son says I identify as a toaster, I think he understands how stupid this stuff is.
This is commonly said about Gen Z, that they're turning out a lot more conservative and like tradcon type stuff than prior generations, because they're seeing millennials and even Gen Xers and shit just do all this stupid stuff, and it's just disgusting.
Yeah, I want to believe that. I don't know. Like my kids, I live in DC. A couple of my kids go to school in Maryland and Bethesda, and it's the worst of the bubbles, right? It's the bluest, and the worst kind. The rich, white, overeducated liberals who see racism everywhere, but they don't ever go anywhere else but their own little fucking cloistered community.
And they'll self-loathe and even hate their own race. They'll hate white. They're white and they hate white people.
They're the loudest ones, and it's all just signaling, that they're virtuous to other people, but they have real power, which is the problem. It would be funny if it wasn't scary and damaging. And so, we have to take action. I want to believe that Gen Z is going to be more conservative or its own thing. Like hopefully they're just not going to buy into this identity radical feminist stuff. Yeah. But we don't know. So it's up to us. It's up to people that have seen the light to take change, to put the message out there, and at the very minimum, educate your own family. And if you can do that, then educate your community. And if you can do that, then maybe you can educate the nation a little bit, which is what our goal in the liminal order is. It's start with becoming the best version of yourself possible, then help your family do the same, then your community, and then the nation. So we're starting from the inside out.
As imperfect as the Manosphere has been, I know Mike Cernovich was famous for calling it a digital ghetto a few years ago. I agree. I mean, I've been trying to drain the swamp, as you've seen. But the Manosphere, I think, even in spite of whatever criticisms you can levy at it that are accurate and not disingenuous bullshit from our enemies, it does a really good job of this. All the elements of it. It's very self-improvement focused, and it's been that way for a long time. And that's a stark contrast to feminism, which that people say that's like the counter to the Manosphere and vice versa, but it's like, maybe it is on a deep level. It is because their shit is super negative. They never teach women. There's an entire subreddit on Reddit called Female Dating Strategy. It's pretty famous. It's a lot like the Red Pill, except it's for women, and it's fucked up. There's nothing in there about self-improvement. It's all about how to manipulate men.
Conniving and stuff. Yeah,
conniving. Yeah, and it's the Red Pill. Even every once in a while you see a threat pop up on the Red Pill community, which is similar, and it's just wild. I mean, they're revealing everything in the Red Pill. They're writing it out. They're spelling it out. All the theories that these dudes talk about, they're just doing it in real time, and they're so vulgar and open about it. It's just it's fucked.
The chicks are.
Yeah, the chicks are. Yeah. And men are not even allowed in this Reddit, by the way. If you're a man and they figure it out, that you get instantly banned.
Well, that's the thing, is that women have evolved their skills of cunning and guile. And my mom hates it when I use that phrase. Guile, but it's true. Cunning and guile. And they had to. Why? Because there were scary tigers and bad guys around, and women are soft and weak, just the way we like them, but not in a bad way. Like that's the positive elements, right? And men are strong and they're angry and they kill things. So like, duh, the only way that women were gonna like find their power was through intellectual manipulation, emotional manipulation. And I'm not even judging and saying that that's bad, right? It's just a woman's cunning and guile is the equivalent of a man's strength and power. They're just are both are evolved strategies for success. And so I don't hate on the game. And it is probably jarring to see women openly discuss things which are by definition, hush hush sort of secrets.
Yep.
And I think that that's one reason why the women hate the idea of men getting together to discuss their mating strategies, because women rely on misinformation, disinformation. They relying on us being underinformed. There's a phrase in economics called imperfect information. They're relying on us having imperfect information.
I've said this for a couple of years now, that women are, even if they're not malicious at all, they're always engaged like in this low key propaganda war to keep betas like pretty ignorant. That they don't see why Chad Thunder, like, guys, it's not, growing up even in high school, I saw the Chads, right? We had a high school quarterback that was godly among the women in the school. He would walk into a classroom and you would visually see every girl in the class start squirming, like physically fucking moving around. He would just like grin at him and shit. It was fucking like right out of a movie.
Yeah.
And then he ended up knocking up the two hottest cheerleaders at the same time senior year. No, like legit, dude. It was, and they both actually, carried a term.
Wow.
But there was no understanding. You would maybe have a little bit of curiosity with that, or even some resentment, but you would have no real understanding as to why those behaviors were so attractive. And women, I think, for better or worse, they want to keep it that way. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think for America and for the West to move forward, we should keep educating men as much as we can. I think information and education are a very positive thing.
I definitely agree with you on the fact that we need to educate people on the way that these philosophies are impacting our culture.
Yeah.
Look, women using cunning and guile and men using brute power and strength have gotten us this far. So like there is some merit to it. And like I said, I don't hate on women. They are literally wired. Their brains are literally wired to be sneaky, to be tricky, to hide when they're ovulating, to, like monkeys, their asses get all red and whatever when they're ovulating. Like everybody knows that they're ovulating, but
their asses or their cheeks or both cheeks?
No. Like it's called eustrus. Like the back end of their ass, it gets all inflamed and it's like a big red signal, right? Like come impregnate me, come impregnate me. But we don't have
like a baboon or something.
Yeah. But women, female humans, they hide that shit. So like their whole concept is based on manipulation and some sort of discreet behind the scenes trickery.
Well, they talk about how they want a real man on Instagram and Tinder, and then like it's like fake top to bottom, like fake this, fake makeup, fake filters, fake angle, fake Photoshop, fake tits, fake lips, fake
I don't hate on that at all. I don't hate on that at all. It's the game.
To a degree, I don't either. I like fake. I think fake tits are wonderful. I'm all for authenticity until it comes to boobs. And zero authenticity. But real expensive.
Yeah, right. The good ones definitely are. Yeah, exactly. The last thing you want to see is a girl with bad boob job, man.
Yep. Yeah,
that ruined one relationship I had years ago. Just couldn't hang, and I wasn't going to pay to fix them. Fuck no. But anyway, I don't hate the game. And the thing is, women have been sharing these secrets with each other forever too. Yeah. Like, why the fuck do they go to the bathroom together? Then they talk about how to manipulate things. They manipulate each other. They shame each other. That's what slut is not a word that men came up with, right? Like slut, yeah, good. You want to have sex? I like it. Good. Yeah. No, but for women, a slut is the worst thing ever, because so the way that the whole thing works is that they have an implied monopoly on sex, right? So it's a cabal. Their whole point is that they have to collectively restrain the availability of sex in order to maintain their power, because that's the power they have over men. So it's like they have to hoard all the money. If they just start handing money out.
This would be an example of why feminists hate on porn stars and porn. They're not, all of a sudden when it comes to pornography for women, there's no freedom, there's no women's rights, no nothing. It's all like shut it down. Most of the time they want to shut it down.
Yeah.
So
Well,
this would be that'd be kind of an example of that, because that's sexual access for men.
that's exactly right. And you know me, I've long been an advocate for women taking their own lives into their hands, making whatever decisions they want, good or bad. I don't care. And if that involves you wanting to be an adult film star or a cam girl or a prostitute, I don't really care. I trust that you can make your best decision for yourself in your moment at that time. The whole irony of feminism is that they don't believe women can make their own decisions.
That's right.
They actually infantilize women, but it's also just revealing that it's really about power control. They don't want men to have access to sex. They don't want men to have access to hookers. They don't want men to have access to pornography. They don't even want men to have access to their fantasies too. And that's something.
Well,
that
even like sex robots, they're going after that now too,
Yeah.
preemptively. Like
Right.
no sex robots you're gonna normalize rape or some shit or no consent or whatever. It's a fucking robot or a
Right.
sex doll. It's crazy. Yeah,
you can't rape a robot.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, exactly. There's such control freaks. Yeah, they can't even allow that. They actually shut down. I think in Europe there was some like sex doll brothels.
Yeah, I saw
They
that.
get shut down. I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah, so that all comes back to the women needing to control the sexual access, and that's how they maintain some of their power. So they're terrified at anything that gives men additional access to sexual partners, whether they're real robot or virtual cam girls, and indeed they're terrified that men are teaching other men how to crack the female code, because this is the source. It's the source of their power as much as your squat number is the source of your power. Like, and so I don't hate the game. You just learn how to play it, man. You just learn.
I think about that sometimes. Like every few months, I'll hop on like a a sugar baby website and bang some sugar babies. Well, I call it's called salt dating because I don't pay them.
Yeah,
instead of sugar dating. But it's fascinating. The level of it's a fascinating demographic to experience because they're so aggressive. It's the opposite of Tinder and these dating apps like that.
Right.
The women come after you because
Right.
they're hunting for money.
Right.
But then even in my case, I don't pay them stuff. I just bang them. You can still see what they do and what they try to do to get money out of you, which they're doing to every other guy, especially guys who are 58, balding and fat or something.
Right.
Like, much younger.
Right.
But you can see that they're desperate for the money and that this is really like all they have. They might be 23 or young or whatever, but even if they're older, it's like a lot of them have to rely on that. Well, they think they do anyway.
Yeah.
And it's
Well, again, I trust women to make their own decisions and whatnot. But you got to realize that the women that you're scooping off those sugar sites, those aren't the true pros, because I think the true pros will look at you and be like, nope, he's not going to do what I want him to do. I'm not going to be able to wrap him around my finger. They're targeting.
Oh yeah. So if they've been on the site, you can see how long someone's been on the site when they made their account. And my rule of thumb is they're older than 6 months on the site, they're pros. Like they're not going to buy. They know what's up.
They know what's up.
I'm looking for the new girls. They might not be young. They might be 25 or even late 20s or something. But they've only been on there for 2 months or 3 months, and they've only met one guy or something. Because a lot of guys on there are very, very beta and very shy, as you can imagine. Yeah. There's a lot of the flake rate on there, even for women, is super high. You don't get flaked on by the women. The dudes flake on the women. They don't even show up.
Yeah. I see. Well, I mean, look, it's just another way to formalize what's already informal in nature, which is women provide company and they provide sexual access, and in return, men provide resources and protection. And like, for us, that sounds a pretty normal thing to say, but like if anybody else was listening who's not sort of steeped in this culture, they think it's the most sexist, misogynistic shit you ever heard of in your whole fucking life.
You're the devil.
Yeah, but it just happens to be the truth, and we've evolved this way over time. And the deep irony of all of this, and I've talked about this with a few evolutionary psychologists and biologists, women are the ones that choose the mate. So it's women's preferences in men that have persisted over time. So the way men are today is because women have decided to mate with these kind of men over such a long period of time that's what isn't that's what resulted. So it's actually women's choice in their sexual partners that have led us to our mutual set of like coexisting behaviors of them providing sex and company and care for kids and emotions and stuff, and us providing power and protection and resources. It's their choice. If women wanted to mate with beta nice guys exclusively, then that's all there would be left in the world is exclusively beta guys. But that's just not, it's just not the case. And so again, it's just all subterfuge and confusion and manipulation. And again, I don't hate the game. You just got to figure it out. And once you figure it out, it's an easy code to crack. It really is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice when you crack it too, man. You speak the womanese and you see through the BS. It's never perfect. There's always more to learn, but
Yeah. Well,
it's fun.
and I don't write much about game and stuff anymore. But women generally can appreciate it. Also, I think they relax a little bit when they understand that you understand. It's like you're in a secret club.
Yep.
You're in a secret club that only knows, that only so many people know this information. And women, I've noticed they appreciate it when you do understand. They also then understand that I'm not going to be able to manipulate this guy. This may not be the right long-term partner for me because he does know the code. But there is a moment, and I've had it a number of times with women where you can just see it in their eyes where they see that you understand. And there's like an appreciation of that. And there's like a different sort of phase of energy shift where they're just like a little bit more resigned to.
I had a pretty visceral experience with this last night, honestly. Super hot chick, easily, top 5, one of the hottest chicks I ever banged. And first time I met her and I banged her in probably like 15 minutes flat, which for me is pretty consistent at this point in my life. In terms of like physically, face-to-face meeting after talking to her for a few weeks. But just, that shift, like you could see it. It happened. It was very surprising. I didn't know it was going to happen last night. And I kind of got the signals. I was like, wow, this is, there's a chance I could pull this off like now. So I got my shit together, went out and pulled it off. And yeah, just a shift in the last minute stuff and seeing her checking me, is this real? This guy for fucking real? Like, she even called her friend up before we banged, and this girl's on the phone. I was talking to her friend and shit. I'm like, yeah, like, we're having a good time. Like, you should come over. It's all kinds of stupid shit like that. But it's a secret society, like you said. In the old school pickup artist days, it was actually called the secret society. And this is basically what they're referring to, the same thing, that you were in that club where women knew you got it and you understood them as good or better than they do.
Right. Well, and that's very powerful, and that's why our universities aren't telling kids how to crack the code, because it reduces their power base. So I see these changes are coming in time holistically across the country, but it's going to be much more turbulence before we get anywhere near to a resolution or pulling any of this stuff back or changing the cultural norms, the parenting norms to dude, our dads and moms telling their sons like, okay, guys, look, this is how it works. There's this code and you have to crack the code. I mean, I'm teaching my kids that. And I don't see a conflict in teaching both boys and girls about the same ideas. And so it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how long it takes, if ever, if the cultural norms and parenting norms are such that it's expected that men and dads will and women, moms will share with their children the codes. My parents sure as fuck never did, because they didn't know. They didn't even know.
Well, I think what we need to do, what I'm trying to do with Make Women Great Again, people have all these ideas about it. They over associate it with like MAGA and stuff for obvious reasons. I don't mind too much. But I really see the manosphere as a place, and now we're spilling it over to women, but the manosphere is a place not only for self-improvement and for men to gather and do things, like this kind of very generalized cognitive behavioral therapy, all kinds of self-help. It's a place where men become more masculine. And it's a place now where not only do men become more masculine, but women are getting involved and we're making women more feminine. And I see Make Women Great Again as a way to create sort of an American femininity that is not based on any particular religion or anything like that. It's just a way that, like you're talking about, like young boys and young girls can learn how to be a better version of themselves, specific to one of their two genders. If they're a young boy, you need to grow up and become a man someday, become masculine. If you're a young girl, you want your daughters to be feminine, to be women someday. and like what does that mean from a secular perspective? And that's what I'm trying to do with this, and
Yeah.
even all the conventions.
Yeah, I think, what's funny about your events, dude, is the marketing is like a river flowing in one direction, and then the content on the ground is like a river flowing in the other direction.
Yep.
And people, I think, would be very surprised to understand how just useful, relevant, mature that the content from the speakers is.
Yeah.
And I suspect that there will be similar content at Make Women Great Again
Absolutely.
22 convention. And that's what people just don't get. It's like,
Yeah.
The content from your speakers there is high level, it's mature, it's filled with wisdom, it's not angry, it's not divisive. I mean, some of the shit you say is pretty divisive, but it's
I'm a good company. I'm a good company.
and angry, but generally speaking, I mean, it's that's the word I was looking for. It's compassionate.
That's right.
It's compassionate because it's guys wanting to help other guys, and it's wanting to see better outcomes for other people. And what's fantastic about my life, if I can say that, my life is fantastic because I have found a way to make a living helping people. I mean, it's wonderful. It's like a blessing. I'm able to examine my life, right? Write about it, think about it, analyze it, present it, repackage it back out into the universe, and the things that I've learned, and then use that to help other men and help other families. I just got it's a blessing. I swear to God. I just got a tweet yesterday. A guy said that he's divorced. He doesn't get to see his kids as much as he wants. His wife won't let him have custody or whatever. And based on my tweets and my stories, he decided to become the basketball coach. And then he set the schedule for the practices to be on nights that he didn't have scheduled with the kids. And he said he took that directly from me and my life and my writings, and has now turned into him seeing his kids like 2 or 3 times extra a week, many more hours in a week. And it's changing his life and it's changing his kids' life. That kind of message back to me is gold. It really made me feel good. It made me feel warm inside, like knowing that I'm a force for good and for positive change is a really wonderful feeling. And the fucked up part is that, like, my ex and my daughter's baby mama, they think that I'm like the devil. They think that I'm evil. They think that I'm like out here just trying to ruin the world or like screw people over or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So like it's insane. It's insane what their misperception is, but there's a lot of history and anger and shit in there too. But people's perception of what we do is so skewed by their own hate. I think it's largely their own self-hate in some ways.
I agree. It's a projection. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a projection, dude.
Well, and I say that in the context that word is like overused on the internet today, but I really mean it. In those cases, I think it's a really clear example of it. They're so filled with hate, they have to like spew it out and vomit it onto the world.
Yeah. In a scientific use of the word, the projection, emotional projection, and when they point and shriek and they accuse you of doing all these terrible things, it's because inside they know they have to know deep in my heart, in their heart, they have to know. I say that because I'm still, all these years, dude, the divorce and the fucked up family courts, my custody battles and struggles, getting doxxed, getting fired, getting swatted, getting raked through the coals in the media, all this shit. I still have a little bit of naivete in me, and I'm still just like hopeful, because each time I get reminded of how whack people are, I still get to be, I'm still like this much surprised, and I still have this much hope that deep inside of them that they're going to have like a revelation, or they know the truth in their heart somewhere, but I'm beginning to think that they just may not, and there's just no hope for some people. I mean, especially with these young social justice advocate warrior types that were raised on critical theory and feminism, because their advocacy is their self-perception. It's
their whole identity.
Yeah, it's who they are. It's their identity. And so they can't struggle with the concepts. They can't struggle with the ideas. They can't think critically about what they're saying. because to do so would be to destroy the identity that they have constructed for themselves, and literally nobody wants to do that, right?
And what that means is they're going to invalidate decades of their life and choices they made, which is really hard to do.
Well, yeah, dude, they invalidate their own life, and they invalidate science and logic and reason and history and all kinds of stuff along the way of trying to maintain this identity and this worldview that all of them had injected into their brain by somebody else. Let's be real. Nobody is born thinking this shit. The truth is we are literally born knowing that men are powerful and provide protection resources, and women have their own power of love and kindness and caring and caretaking and softness and sexuality. That's what we're born knowing, right? It's this other shit that's injected into people's brains along the way that is fucking them up. Now, you can really build an identity over time that can't be shaken. So you can't, your filters for information and reality get so skewed and fucked that like real facts don't even make it into your brain, right? Like, you know, as human beings, our senses aren't set up to like sense all of the information out there, because if we did, we'd be totally overwhelmed. What our senses do is they actually are filtering mechanisms, right? So like they decide which pieces of information, what data that's out there is important for us, and then those are the only things that we actually notice, smell, hear, see, or whatever, right? And so when you take your lens and you just fucking crank it all the way down to just a pinhole, and all you can see is people, you know, negativity, and you can't adjust your thinking or your theories or your models of life, then you're fucked. Which is why we should, and we do, and I know you advocate for this, and many of the guys in Manosphere advocate for this, is building an identity of development, right? Your whole structure of your life and perspective has to be, I want to learn things. I need to learn things. I need to update my own models of the world. I need to update my own viewpoints. I need to be constantly evolving, constantly seeking new sources of information, reading new people, listening to new podcasts, talking to my friends more and more about things, because you have to, your identity has to be one of change. It has to be one of growth.
Saying lately that masculinity, not only self-improvement, is a lifetime journey. You can always improve. There's always room to improve as long as you're alive and you're a human being, right?
Yeah.
But I also think that masculinity itself is, for men, as an endeavor that is lifelong. You can always become more masculine in a healthy, useful, productive way, positive way.
Yeah.
There's no way there's a cap to that. You have a biological base for it, you know, whether it's testosterone or evolutionary history influencing your brain. And you have a whole lifetime ahead of you until you get hit by a bus or die of something else to become more masculine and understand what that means and navigate that and express it.
Yeah,
Not just general self-improvement, but masculinity.
Yeah, there's no end point to it because the nature of masculinity in and of itself is a practice, right? It's like it's an ongoing thing. There's no final destination. You can get better at practicing and exhibiting your masculinity, which is an interesting tie back to the notion that men have to earn their status and earn their masculinity through action and through behavior. You have to do things. You have to prove yourself to the other men that you are able to, you know, that you're deemed worthy of this notion of masculinity.
And some examples would be like competitiveness, would be competency, would be resilience to trauma and, you know, the challenges of the world.
Yes, absolutely. And just achievement, you know, just achievement in general, and physical power. And there's all these, you know, criteria that we associate typically with masculinity. And it's an ongoing process and a practice. So you can never perfect it, because masculinity is in of itself a practice. It's an ongoing and consistent thing where you have to consistently be displaying these traits to the people around you, and for your own self-confidence and your own self-actualization. You know, I find it very difficult to believe that a man can consider himself to be self-actualized or receive the benefits of those feelings without having, you know, mastered the practice of masculinity and the expression of that masculine nature. I just don't see how you can become, you know, at the top of the hierarchy, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, without appreciating and embracing your masculinity and maximizing it. So, it's something that we need to do. You're doing it. I'm doing it. And, it's funny. We work in this industry. We're in this every day. We talk about it every day. So it seems like everyone around us is talking about it. But like the truth is I really don't think like nationwide, our messages are breaking out, but it's definitely not just a mainstream conversation or like a mainstream thought.
It's very hard to get to that level of conversation. Yeah. Even Make Women Great Again got as close, I think, as anything in the manosphere has gotten in a long time. And even that, I mean, it's still, I want it to happen. I want it to continue, and we'll see if that happens this year. But I really want it to hit, we hit almost 100 million, but we need to hit like 300 million or something like that, even more. Really, we need to do, I think, what I hope is that eventually this idea will reach the Democratic candidates and their opposition to Trump, and we'll try to weaponize it against him. And that will reach then a national conversation. Because this thing people get, whatever they think of it, they know there's something to it. And it just triggers the shit out of normies like all day long, mainstream culture.
It does. So what's interesting about modern marketing tactics is you have to not only have the idea that you want to transmit, but you have to then pick a vector for it to transmit through society,
like a vehicle.
A vehicle, a vector, like a Trojan horse, whatever it is. So you have to have both. You have to have the tool, and you have to have the idea. And that hat right there is a tool. It's a vector. It's a fucking disease agent that spreads, through culture, not in a bad way, but like virally, in the literal sense.
I remember when I revealed it that night at the 2018 convention.
I sure do.
I almost didn't do that. I almost kept it a secret even from the speakers, but I was like, we were drinking and shit, and I was like, I'm gonna bring this out.
Yeah, and, I do remember that was a very interesting room full of guys that night.
Yeah,
lots of folks people would know from the Manosphere and authors and speakers and stuff, and everybody was relaxed and kicking back. Yeah. And then you busted out this hat, and to be honest, dude, myself and others, we thought it was like fun marketing. Didn't really think you were going to actually do it. And that's not for like a lack of faith in your ability by any means. No, it's just because, fucking too crazy. too crazy. But the way that you have paired it with the 21 is 22,
you mean?
Sorry, 22, but it's very smart. And there's obviously some demand. You know what? I can confirm this, dude. So Liminal Order is all men's organization, right? But you would not believe every day I get messages from women. Where is the women's version? Where is the women's version? Where is the women's version? Would you start a women's version? How can I sign up? So the demand is definitely there. The demand is definitely there. Women, look, there's red pill bitches all over the place. We love you, honeys. Like they know, they know, and they want community too. I mean, they're humans, right? This
is something Cernovich talked about on his interview with George Bruno as well a few months ago or last year in Orlando at Patriarch, and that Cernovich was saying basically what I was saying is that there's a lack of positive media and organization for women. They just have feminism, which is a very negative, toxic version. There's no counter thing. There's no counter movement to that. And that's really what this is. To me, this is like an Obamacare repeal and replace thing for feminism. I want to repeal and replace feminism, abolish it with this.
That's funny.
But what that means ultimately, everyone's over-focused on the men and the speakers and the mansplaining. They don't get it. Long term, I want to kind of pass the baton off or the torch off to women. To all the women that are the red pill women and stuff that are genuinely in favor of femininity in any kind of common sense, traditional or biological sense, and they want to get together and promote it. And I think there are women out there doing that, but it's not like the manosphere. They don't have like a femisphere yet. And I want to basically create that and then, kind of get that like a snowball going down a hill. And that's what this is really, at the end of the day, that's what this is intended to do, is galvanize and organize all those women, whether it's Taylor Burrows or Janice Fiamengo or any of them, to keep making content, keep talking, and really push back on their own against the nasty, disgusting feminists that are just a bunch of bigots.
Yeah, I mean, it's got momentum. There's definitely a market need for it. And again, I see that just in my own day-to-day work. Yep. So I suspect that you will have good growth with that. And it makes perfect sense. I mean, women, they maybe even need community more than men. I mean, they're more likely to emote and more likely to communicate and to empathize with each other. And so it's a natural phenomenon that will come up. And I really think what's happening is this is all a rational response to this phenomenon, and feminism, radical feminism, has been left unchecked for too long.
That's right.
And what we're doing is just an inevitable outcome to something that has become so powerful that of course there's going to be opposition to rise up against it.
Yeah.
And it's we're really still in the nascent stages. I mean, how long did it take them to go from, let's get the vote, women I'm talking about here, when did they start? Even I think people trace like the roots of feminism back to like the late 1800s. There was like the Seneca conference or
Early.
something.
That's 1848, Seneca Falls.
Seneca Falls, yeah. And so how fucking long did it take for them to go from that to here? It could take a couple generations for the counterbalance and the pendulum to swing back, but it's not going to swing back on its own, guys. That's the thing.
Right. That's right.
Someone somewhere has to take action. History has to be made by men and women. History has to be made by people taking action. And like it's easy to forget that. Then you read history books and you read these big concepts and they invaded this country. It's like, well, guess what? Some motherfucker somewhere was like, we're going to invade this country. Let's get the army together and let's go. And he motivated all those people to do it. Like, history is made through people making decisions. It's not this ephemeral, just like specter or just like this weird thing you can't touch.
It just happened.
Right. It just happened. No, you actually on the margins have to do stuff. And the difficulty in staying focused on that kind of stuff is that, we read about World War II being like 6 years long or whatever. Oh, okay. And we read about all these battles and everything. And it seems like it took time and there was years in between and months and whatever, but on the ground, it's like, wow, this is taking forever. Like every day goes by and the situation hasn't changed. It hasn't changed in years. Man, imagine that, grinding years of world war, right? And so when you're on the ground making history, it's these changes are so incremental and they're so seemingly minor and microscopic that it's hard to stay focused. But we have to stay focused because eventually they add up to years and then decades and then generations. And then that's how you get some real fucking change. And what are we? The first time the word manosphere was thrown around was probably around 2008 or 9, probably. But it had its roots even further back than that. So what are we? We're like maybe 2 decades into like men organizing to discuss these matters in a formal way. It's accelerating. Obviously, technology has been a huge part.
That's what I was going to say. Is you're saying generations, and I think it's a possibility. But when feminism got started in the 1840s or whatever, Seneca Falls, I mean, they didn't have the internet, which is such a radical change in human life, in every domain of life, not just with politics or cultural movements like this.
Yeah.
So it's hard to predict, I think, how long it'll take, but I think decades is at minimum pretty reasonable.
Yeah. I mean, the ideas will spread much faster than they did before. I was just laughing, thinking about like some chick on her horse riding from town to town being like, did you hear about this new thing, feminism? And like having like a pamphlet to hand you,
Yeah,
and
like,
right. She told like 3 people that month, whereas I send out a tweet and it can hit 500,000 people in a single fucking day. It's unbelievable the power that we have in front of us with this technology. And that's one reason why this whole thing is kind of fun, is because it's really truly a 21st century 2020 phenomenon, right? Like all of history led us to this point, and then the technology that we're using is all cutting edge. The systems that we're using to do these things, the marketing methods, the social media, all of it is all explicitly and 100% germane to this time period. And so what we're doing is, you could never have done this before, and you'll never have this kind of moment again in the future. You'll have different kinds, but not this particular one. And so it's unique, and it's ours, right? It's our time. And truly we're building history here. And it's hard to remember that sometimes, but as one book gets published and another book gets published and another one references that book and another event happens and these ideas commingle and more videos and speeches, and the library and body of work is growing and growing and growing and growing, and that's what's going to be needed to win at the end, where there's going to have to be this whole universe of literature, and by that I mean, you know, speeches and videos and books and tweets and blogs.
I actually used to call 21 Studios, the tagline was a universe for the ideal man.
No.
Basically a universe to a body of knowledge and a library of knowledge to make yourself the best that you can by your own vision and your own design.
Yeah. Was it in Superman where like the early movies where he had this, like, he could go into this like ice palace and just push a button and ask a question and get the answer from his dad or something. That's what you're building, is like a total library to answer basically any question. Oh yeah, you know, we need to talk offline. I have an idea about a new search engine actually that we need to put together. So that's a little bit of a tease there. Limo Order's been working on developing a search engine and customized to help us find the data that we want and uncluttered by data that we don't want, and unaffected by bias of Google and other companies. So we should talk about that, and guys, look for that. That's going to be coming out pretty soon, actually. So I don't remember what I was talking about, but fucking.
I know you got to get going soon, but before you go, I want to do some current news commentary on what's going on in the Democratic primaries with relation to feminism, sexism, crap like that. So let's pull some of that up. Not too long ago, I saw that Elizabeth Warren attacked Bernie Sanders with the help of CNN with a sexism accusation. You know, apparently a couple decades ago or years ago, they got in some conversation. Bernie flat out denied it. You know, this avowed socialist, borderline communist, who's the furthest thing in woke culture that could be really considered legitimately a sexist. Like, I'm not a sexist or whatever, a misogynist, but I get why they accuse me of this bullshit.
Right.
But to see Bernie get accused of that in a fucking debate was pretty amazing.
Oh my God, it was. And dude, the media, whoever was doing that debate, they coordinated CNN clearly with the Warren campaign. And the person asking the question, Bernie answered, he said ABC, and she was like, XYZ, you just said XYZ, like didn't even listen to what he said, didn't even acknowledge what he said. Now look, I can imagine what happened, right? Like whatever, a year ago, they got together and they're like, who are we going to pick to beat Trump? And they all were talking about it. And at one point, Bernie says, you know, I don't think a woman is going to be able to beat Trump in 2020. That's probably what he said, right? Which is fucking true, right? No, a woman is not going to beat Donald Trump in this election in 2020. Yep. And it's not because she's a woman. It's just because that's just not how it's going to happen right now. But he didn't say that a woman couldn't be president. He just said a woman isn't going to win this time. And she's twisting that shit around. And I mean, I love watching them fucking eat each other alive.
I do too. It is really fun. It is really, it's like better than WWE wrestling. It's amazing.
It is amazing. This Democratic primary has been so fun to watch. I love it. I love watching them just get nasty and use their own tactics on each other. And it's just bullshit. But what the sad thing that's come out of this, though, is that they've all been pulled far to the left. And they will, you know, in the old days, you would say that in the primaries, you go to you appeal to your base on the extremes, and then you move to the middle for the general election. But that's not going to happen this time, because nobody's going to let Bernie Sanders forget the fact that he said America is racist from top to bottom. Right. Well, fuck you, Bernie. Like, you know, fuck you. And then Warren.
I would say like, America is probably the least racist country in the world, is how I view it.
Yeah, it's the most liberal, open-minded, welcoming, tolerant nation that's ever existed on the planet, ever. Okay. And then you got Warren saying that racism is everywhere and getting worse every day, and we have to do everything to stop it. I mean, fuck these people, right?
It's insane.
It is insane. But they have. And this is what happened with the corporations too. So you get the kids in college, they get this fucking brainwashing in college, and then they get out into their early professional lives, and the corporations had to change in order to accommodate this new wave of graduates. And that's why the corporations adopted a lot of these ideas. And now the candidates and the campaigns are also adopting these stupid ideas that these kids are bringing out of college. And they're it's like they don't understand that half the country or more doesn't even know what they're talking about when they start saying these kind of things.
Yeah. So let's get some further thoughts, because later it wasn't just Warren on Bernie. It was Warren took on, and obviously there was some obviously kind of more generalized political move to this. She went out, swinging at Bloomberg when he came on the debate stage. She pointed out that I guess Bloomberg is on record for calling women fat broads and horse-faced lesbians. That was pretty amazing to see that. That was like, wow. I hate Elizabeth Warren with a passion. I mean, she's a total douchebag. But seeing her do that was pretty. I mean, it's kind of a lowbrow kind of thing to pull this sexist crap off, but it's also just it was just a spectacle just to watch this go down.
It is very lowbrow. It is funny to watch her try to go on the attack because it's so incongruent with who she was, with who she is, and her just whole vibe and energy, right?
Even the way she said it, fat broads and horse-faced lesbians.
Well, it's just hysterical because, dude, guess what? There are fat broads and horse-faced lesbians out there. So I'm sure he was like identifying one of them. You know what it doesn't say in the quote? It doesn't say all women, right? It's like he pointed out a fat broad. Big deal.
Yeah.
But
this would be a good example of feminism influencing politics at a major political level during an election. I mean, this is being weaponized. Any kind of negative comment, any kind of critical comment, not even negative, but critical about women gets weaponized against a guy immediately. And you can almost never do the same in reverse. It would get brushed off in an instant.
Yeah. What it will be interesting to see is that in a way, Bloomberg is Trump-like. He is a masculine leader, risk taker, doesn't give a fuck about a lot of things, right? And so Warren is taking this approach with him that's similar to what Hillary did with Trump, right? Like point out all of the non-disclosure agreements and ask him about who he harassed and la da da da. But we saw what happened. Hillary taking that approach spurred a lot of us into action, right? It motivated people who believe in the power of masculinity to say, oh, well, Trump might be onto something here. And if he's going to be acting masculine like that, then maybe we should get behind him. It would be interesting to see if Bloomberg can channel if there's any masculine energy left in the Democratic Party at all, which is questionable. It'll be interesting to see if he can channel that.
Well, if we can close on that, because if there is, that's a good point. If there's any masculine energy left in the Democratic Party at all, I was going to say, it seems like the political parties, like back in the 90s, for example, the idea that one party would be anti-male and the other would be not hostile to men would just be weird. There wasn't that kind of division wasn't there. But at this point, is it accurate to say or fair to say that the Republican Party as a major political party is not hostile to men in general, and the Democratic Party is?
Oh my God, 100%. The Republican Party is the party of masculine energy. I tweeted that out a few weeks ago. It is the party of masculine energy. The Democratic Party is the party of feminine energy and feminist energy, let's say, because feminine energy in general is wonderful. I love it. I like to have it around me all the time. But it is the party of feminist energy. And if you are a man who believes in the power of masculinity and you are a woman who appreciates masculine men, there is only one place for you in politics today, and that is with the Republicans and with Trump. And dude, I never in my life thought I would grow up and say I'm a fucking Republican. Look at this book over my shoulder right here. I was a Democrat, and then I turned into a deplorable. Happily get my book, Democrat to Deplorable. It's really good. It's been used in universities to teach kids about what happened in 2016. Fantastic book. People are saying it's a tremendous book. And
tremendous.
Tremendous book.
Tremendous.
Tremendous. And I just never in a million years would have thought that I was a Republican. But guess what? I am a Republican. I'm voting Republican. I'm proud to say that I'm a Republican. And as we've discussed through this whole thing, which has been really great talk, the masculine energy and the issues with feminism and masculine energy are from top to bottom in society. And it's in our politics, and it's red versus blue, and it's everywhere at all times. And if you have any interest in preserving masculinity, both for yourself, for your kids, for the country, right? Yep. Then you have to. There is no question. You have to support Donald Trump, and you can't just even sit back and say, I'm not going to vote or whatever, because if the left wins, if the Democrats win, if the progressives get back into power and can repopulate all of our institutions, they will work tirelessly to destroy masculinity.
That's right. I agree.
100% as an explicit stated goal, and they will take an election as a stamp of approval and consent for them to implement all of their most radical ideas. And as we discussed earlier, it doesn't take an act of Congress. It doesn't take changing laws. It just takes regulatory changes to have tremendous impact. And they will, as a goal, explicitly attack masculine power. There's no question about it, 100%. If you believe in masculinity, you have to vote for Donald Trump.
On that point of voting for Donald Trump, I wanted to bring up, and I maybe have some comments on this, but the Manosphere, I think, is a very diverse place. And it was politically at one point, too. But even today, with racial stuff, demographics, fathers, single guys, bachelors, there's even some women involved. There's so many different religions involved, secular atheists, objectivists like myself. You got Jews, Christians, all kinds of denominations. You got Muslims. It's amazingly diverse in all the ways that woke left virtue signals about, but does not give two fucks about. They hate it. We have real diversity of ideas and of people, and we get along really well for a common goal and common vision. For fatherhood and masculinity and femininity and all these things. But what's interesting is, you vote for Donald Trump. I agree 100%. That's why I endorsed him in 2016 explicitly, just before the election. I actually said in my endorsement video that I put out on our channel, I was like, look, if you're a man, you need to vote for Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton is definitely hostile to men and masculinity, and Donald Trump is not. I think he's in favor of it generally, but more importantly, he's not hostile to it. And that alone is a big benefit. But I think what's happened in the manosphere is there was maybe some political diversity back in the 2000s, and now it's like the manosphere has got to be 95% Trump or something like that, pro-Trump. Like the guys who are not, it's really rare.
That's a reflection of the changing politics, not of the changing nature of the people in the manosphere, right?
That's right.
The left changed. The left us, right? They careened wildly off to the side. And in doing that, left a lot of people politically homeless and left a lot of people like myself completely shocked to say, I'm fucking voting Republican. And willing and interested and able to caucus with and be a coalition partner with a wide range of people on the right that I probably would not have wanted to do in the past. And that brings up the other side of this, which is in the Democratic caucus are people who believe that straight white guys are literally the evil devil of the universe and must be destroyed. You cannot vote for a party that wants to make me the villain for and the the cause of every problem in America. And on top of that, the Democrats don't even like America, dude. Like voting for Republican is voting for Trump is a vote for America. I just got done saying this on Twitter today. There's a lot of academics lately that are coming out saying that they can't be Democrats anymore. And I'm like, and they don't want to vote for Trump just yet. I'm like, look, it's not a vote for Trump. It's a vote for America. Okay. It's a vote for America. And if you believe in this country, if you believe in Western civilization, if you believe in Enlightenment ideals, if you believe in science and reason and individuality or individualism, and you believe in masculinity, there's no choice.
You got to vote for the orange man.
There's just no choice. You got to vote for the orange man. He's got the really bad tan going, fake tan. I wish he'd work on that. Joe Biden, I don't know if you noticed, he's got the orange face going now too.
Nice.
I mean, dude, when you're over 70 and your skin's getting all thin and shit, I can understand it. But there's really just no question. And my prediction, as we wrap this up, my prediction is that Donald Trump wins handily against any of the candidates that are put forth at this point in time. I think Bloomberg probably would give him his best challenge. But I don't see that happening, but I could be wrong. But Trump, there were 9 million Democrats that voted for Obama who voted for Trump. I can tell you not a single one of them is going to go back and vote for a progressive candidate after voting for Trump. And that 9 million number is only going to grow. So I expect his margin of victory to be even higher than it was before. That's a big statement right now, not even knowing who the nominee is going to be. But I do believe it's a cultural force that's in play here.
Yeah, and it's just showing itself through politics in a presidential election. Final thoughts. Do you have comments on the actual Democratic primary? Who's going to get it? You think Bernie will get out? You think it'll be contested? Will Bloomberg spend $1 billion to get it?
I think all those things actually are going to be true. So Bernie is going to probably win the most delegates. Bloomberg is going to spend $1 billion trillion, and I do believe that there's going to be a contested convention. That's why I'm at this point planning to go to Milwaukee for the convention. It is going to be a wild shit show up there.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And I'm interested just to watch them just tear each other apart. It's like one of the best parts about this whole election cycle is the Democrats just eating each other alive.
And I'd say they're doing it mostly to themselves. Like Trump is, fanning the fire, of course, but really they're doing it on their own. He didn't even what a gift for him. What a blessing. Like,
yeah, it's just such a disaster of a strategy for all of them. But we'll see how it plays out. But it's going to be good TV, that's for sure.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Jack, we'll wrap up. I appreciate your time today. It's been a good conversation. I appreciate your input on politics and feminism and all that. I think the guys enjoyed it a lot. It's been a lot of chat here. I've already been bringing a little bit. Thanks as well, guys, for tuning in live and for the super chats. As a final comment, get Jack's book on Amazon, of course, Democrat to Deplorable. His Twitter account is linked in the video description, the bio, wherever you're watching this. And finally, of course, make sure you get tickets. Meet Jack live and myself, many other speakers at the 21 Convention, second Patriarch Edition for Fathers and Fatherhood, coming this April 30th to May 3rd in Orlando, Florida. Tickets are about half off right now till Sunday night. You can bring a friend free to bring the ticket price even lower. You can also bring your wife or girlfriend to 22 Convention at the same time, same weekend, make it a couples thing. And meet a lot of amazing speakers, not just me and Jack, but Elliot Hulse, Stefan Molyneux, Mike Cernovich, Ryan Mitchler, George Bruno. I mean, it's a wild, wild event. It's very, very professional, very positive. Like Jack's saying, I do have this kind of online, I don't know what you'd call it, bad boy streak to just, rile everybody up. But to me, it's like a yin-yang thing. And Jack's actually right. The events are extremely positive. There's some criticism and I guess you'd call it negativity towards things that are, in my opinion, evil or hostile, like feminism. But that's pretty small. I'd say it's 90-10 or 80-20. Yeah. It's all positivity and it's all basically self-improvement. It's a self-improvement conference wrapped with a little bit of edginess to it, I guess.
Yeah. One last thing about 21, guys, is like first time I got down there, I didn't know what to expect. And I was blown away with how professional an operation it was. Nice. It's not a fly-by-night. It's not immature. It's not any of that. It's very, very professional. The technology, the filming, the structure, very organized, well put together, well produced. And the content that you get from the speakers is very mature. It's full of wisdom and compassion.
It's very personalized too. They get to talk to you guys a lot.
Oh yeah, and then the social element of it in the evenings is good. Yeah. So, I was impressed my first time down, which is why I went down another time, and I'm ready to come back again this spring. So you're putting out a good product, dude. We may have different strategies for marketing and awareness, but you're putting out really good product, and the guys who are doing it, you're putting the speeches together are awesome, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to seeing everybody.
Fuck yeah, man. And yeah, as far as our strategies, hey, diversity is a good thing, man. It's all about diversity.
Yeah, 100%. All right, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Thanks for everybody for checking in. Hit me up at Jack Murphy Live on Twitter, jackmurphylive.com, Democrat to Deplorable on Amazon, or liminal-order.com. Come down and check it out, please. See you there.
Cool stuff. That's it, guys, for episode 98. See you next week at 11 a.m. sharp for episode 99. Peace out.